So I have for demonstration purposes here 2 cantaloupes. I can't call them melons because that would be politically incorrect. No! Alright, it's time to wrap up the video series. I've got a bunch of miscellaneous loose ends today to tell you about that I forgot to say in other videos. And we still have one more video after this, and that's where I give away over 3/4 of my audio equipment. I've just got too much of it. So, exciting stuff still on the way. Alright, first up on my video on how to attach a lavalier microphone to a woman, I forgot to mention this thing. It's a bra clip. It's a little funnel that the microphone sticks in, and it protects the tip of the microphone so nothing can touch it. And it has a little clip on the back that you can attach to the middle part of the bra. So here we have a typical bra, and the middle part here that holds the 2 parts together, that's what you clip this thing onto. You just clip it on the front like that, and nothing touches the microphone. Notice how there's a gap in there? That's very convenient for having nothing touching, brushing up against it, and this clip holds it right floating in the middle there, and it's a perfect place to have a microphone. So this is a great way of placing a lavalier microphone on a woman. Obviously hand it to her so she can put it there herself, and there you go, having great audio for that. Alright, next up in the little recorder in your pocket department, I forgot to mention that the Rode Wireless Go 2 transmitter can record internally without having to even use it as a wireless unit, without having to use the receiver. You just turn it on, put it in your pocket, and it starts recording immediately. You don't even have to push record or anything. You just turn it on and it starts recording, and you can export it as 32-bit float or 24-bit. To activate this feature, download the Rode Central app to your computer or cell phone, click the little gear icon for settings, and set it to always record. Now again, this is the Rode Wireless Go 2, which is different than the Rode Wireless Go, the original one. The original one doesn't do it, the Go 2 does. The single person version, which is this one, is $200, and the 2-person version is $300. It sounds actually pretty darn good. Not as good as the $800 Zaxcom that I'm using, but it sounds, to a normal person, they couldn't tell the difference. It sounds really good. So anyway, that's a good thing to keep in mind if you want to record right in your pocket without using any wireless unit. This is really small. And it's easy to use. You need an app to download it to your computer or phone, but it's pretty easy also. So keep that in mind. Next up, most lavalier microphones have a locking 3.5mm or 1/8" threaded plug, which means that you can screw it tightly onto the transmitter or the recorder so it cannot accidentally come out while you have it in your pocket or it's recording. Some devices where you just plug it in and there's no locking mechanism, that the locking plug does not go in as well as a plug that is not locking or threaded. So I like to use locking to non-locking adapters. So you screw your plug into the threaded end, the receiving end, and then on the male end there is no locking, and it goes in deeper than with the threaded version. So for those transmitters and recorders that don't have a threaded locking receiver, this is what I like to use to make sure that it gets in there deeper and has a better connection. And you can also have these wired so the signal from a mono microphone goes to both the left and the right tracks of something recording in stereo. I'll get more into that in a minute. I guess you can find them online, but I like to have all my adapters made. I have them made at Gotham Sound at gothamsound.com, or I'm sure places like Location Sound and other places like that can make you some adapters too. So this is a locking to non-locking adapter. Alright, next up, the foam around the lavalier microphones. I never use it. I always take it off. I find it's kind of useless. It doesn't really do much other than muffle the sound a little bit. There's no wind indoors if you're indoors, and if you're outdoors, this doesn't really stop wind that much. It's better to use a dead cat. And when you're indoors, I mean, it's usually far enough away so you don't have to worry about plosives or anything like that. This really doesn't serve any purpose. I always have the bare microphone exposed so you have a nice, clean sound going, and there's nothing between you and the microphone. If you're shooting something outside and it's a little bit windy, here's the basics. Always have your back to the wind, if possible. So this area is protected. There's no wind hitting this area here. All the wind's hitting your back. So there's nothing hitting the microphone. And if you have a little bit of wind coming from the side or anything like that, always put the microphone underneath your shirt. Hide it underneath a layer of clothing. In the previous videos I showed you how to attach it properly so nothing's touching the tip of the microphone. And if the microphone does have to be on the outside, put a dead cat on it. That's a big furry clump. Nothing protects you from wind better than fur. And if you're using shotgun mics, you've got these things here. These are furry protection devices for a shotgun mic, which goes then inside here. And so this is for low wind. This is just for very mild wind. This is by Oray. I'll put the links to some of these down below. But for really heavier wind, you need something like this. The longer the fur, the better. Now, I've had people say before on their, I've seen on some of their videos, they got this big clump of fur here, and they say, they're thinking about trimming it up so it doesn't look as obnoxious. Well, they're kind of defeating the purpose. The longer the fur is, the better it hides wind. The wind has to go through more length of stuff, and it gets absorbed more by the length than before it gets into the inside. Now, inside here, we have what's called a blimp. This is what it looks like. This is a blimp. And you put your shotgun mic inside here, like this. There's your shotgun mic. And then this goes into here. And then this big furry beast goes around that. So these things actually work pretty darn good. It's amazing how well these things work. Fur is the best sound eater there is. If you want to have a real soundproof room or create a box to be inside of where it's soundproof, line the inside of it with the longest fake fur you can get, and you will be amazed how quiet it is in there. This is great stuff. All right, this one should be pretty obvious, but when you're recording and you're setting your levels and you see the meter going up and down, never set it for 90% or even 100%. You're going to clip and it's going to distort. Always shoot for -6 dB. Some people set it for -12 dB. I always do -6 dB, but give it some room there. And when you're editing, never have anything go over -3 dB, not even the little peaks. So use a limiter for that or take them down manually one by one. And speaking of adapters, I notice a lot of people complaining that their microphone or their recorder only records in mono and not stereo, and they want stereo. Well, I hate to say it, but most microphones are mono. And what you're seeing in the camera, where it's only recording on the left channel or the right channel, that's not really technically mono. It's only half of a stereo track. But that aside, if you really want it on both sides of your, I realize it's annoying when you only hear it on one side and not the other, is get a stereo to mono adapter. That way it'll put the same information on both tracks, and then you'll hear it on both sides of your headphones, and then you'll be happy. By the way, stop obsessing over stereo. All my voice recordings are in mono, and people like it. Don't worry about it. I mean, especially for voice. I mean, you really don't need stereo for voice for the kind of stuff that I do that you're probably doing too. You can get these stereo to mono adapter online, or again, get them made at Gotham Sound or something like that. But something, you don't need it, but it's good to know that it's out there. All right, everybody's talking about 32-bit float. I don't need 32-bit float. I set my recording levels properly. I'm not worried about it. But for some people who are starting in audio or have unpredictable, you don't know what's going to happen, loud or quiet, then yeah, 32-bit might be the way to go. But if you know how to work your equipment properly, you don't need 32-bit float. One thing I hate about many consumer cameras, especially Sony cameras, oh, I hate this. I mean, it's good for a lot of people who don't want to think about it and they just want everything automatic. That's great. But for people like me who want to set everything manually, it's really frustrating because when you record into a Sony camera and you've got something nice and loud and you got the level set, what the camera does is it analyzes the audio and then it adjusts it based on what it thinks the level should be. So for the first 2 seconds, your audio sounds nice and good and loud and it's crisp and everything. And then after a while, it sounds like this. What it does is it brings it down to what it thinks it should be. And I can't override that. So I hate that about some, I mean, even the expensive $5,000 A7S III and all these other cameras, they still do that. So that's another reason I record into a recorder where I can set everything manually. And they have automatic noise reduction too. So if you got some kind of background sound like a waterfall or some traffic noise, or some of it's unwanted, but sometimes it filters out the stuff you want to have in there. So again, I mean, that's another reason I don't record into cameras, because they try to, and it's good for most people where it takes out the background noise and sets the levels for you. So for, you know, and people who are just starting out, that's great. But for people like me who want to have full control, another reason I don't record into a camera. And if you are recording externally into a pocket recorder and not into the camera, for those of you who do not have automatic syncing software, which takes only like 30 seconds to sync up your audio and video, it's always good to do the hand clap before. So like 3 to 5 claps, so you can sync up where the hands touch and where the bing is on the track. Really easy to sync up the audio and the video. And if you're trying to match up the audio and video from a wireless system, be aware there might be a delay, especially the new digital systems have it worse than the ones from the old UHF ones, where you see the hand coming together for the clap and where you actually see the peak of the clap on the sound wave, it might be off because of the time it takes for the wireless system to encode, send the signal, decode it, put it into the camera, there is a little bit of a time delay, so be aware of that. And this leads me to the issue of recording your own voice while you have headphones on. You could get this, where it sounds kind of like really weird and you hear like this phasing sound and everything. Well, what's happening is the microphone is picking up your voice and the sound that's coming out of the headphones that's leaking through the sides here. And there's a little bit of a delay between the actual voice and where it goes through some kind of electronic device and gets into your headphones. That little bit of a delay makes it sound kind of reverby. So be aware of that. If you have that, you have to hold the headphones really tight to your ears to make sure that no sound leaks out of here and gets into the microphone. So just be aware of that. Some headphones, they leak a bit of sound out into the microphone. And like I said in the last video, whenever you're recording anything, always record some empty space where you're not talking, like maybe 10, 20, 30, or even up to a minute of background sound without anybody talking, because there will be times where you have to do your voiceover, where you screw up, you say something wrong, and you have to do a voiceover later on to match what you were saying in the recording. And for that, you need the same background ambiance to match. Stop obsessing over XLR. Unless you're using long cable runs, you don't need it. I don't use XLR for anything. It's funny how these people they're so like, I have giant XLR things on top of their camera, and they have the microphone right there on the camera with like 3 inches from the XLR inputs, and they have a little tiny cable going in there, or they have a receiver with a little thing going in there. It's funny. I mean, I use nothing but tiny little connectors. Even professionals use smaller stuff like a Limo 3 adapter. It's like a little tiny mini XLR. This big clunky XLR, it's like dinosaur age stuff. It is old school. It is what they used to use 50 years ago. And the most important audio thing of all is practice, practice, practice. Play around with every possible scenario you can to find what works and what doesn't. You'll learn more that way than watching every YouTube video in the world. That'll just turn your brain into jello. Nothing beats firsthand experience and practice. And I guess most important of all, even more than that, is enjoy what you do. That will make you experiment more, and that's how you will learn and grow and find what works. So just enjoy it. Have fun with it. I love playing around with audio. I don't like talking about it, so it's why I can't wait to get back into the photography stuff. I don't mind talking about photography, but I do mind talking about audio for some reason. I guess because there's too many audio files out there. So anyway, I had to put it out there because people were asking for it, and this has been almost 10 years of me playing around with stuff. I have so much audio stuff that I never use hardly any of it. I just tried it once or twice and then put it in a box and never used it. So I have so much stuff to give away. So next time around, I will be giving away over 3/4 of my audio gear. So stay tuned for that in the next video. I hope the software can handle it. We'll see. But anyway, I hope you've enjoyed my audio series. Audio is so important for the user experience, and hearing a nice, clear voice speaking to you makes the video so much more personal and easier and fun to watch. So anyway, I hope it helped in some way, and time to get back to photography. Thank God, this is a photography channel, right? Okay, so I'll see you next week for the big giveaway. Until then, have a great week. See you then.